Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 415. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Our next guest has raised over $12.8 million in VC funding for her digital tax assistant tool, making her one of only a few Black women to raise $10 million plus in funding. Welcome, Shiloh Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Sure. I am building a software company in an environment where there aren't very many software companies that support tax for small businesses. So we're one of the very few in that arena as well. And I came to that by way of my subject matter expertise. I have been a corporate tax accountant for 15 years, and I saw a gap in the market and was able to support small businesses in understanding the early stages of how to comply with all the tax requirements according to all the notices that they get in, and making sure that business licenses and annual reports are paid on time. And so we get to sit in that gap for people, and that's really exciting for us.
Talk about moving from the CPA space into software development.
Which is quite contrary to what I think people expect. Usually service providers in this field are crazy about tax or accounting in some degree, and it's very much a passion for us, at least as far as I have experienced it. And I actually didn't set out to do software. I set out to be a business manager. I had a mentor at the time. She was running still my mentor, she's running the largest minority-owned business management firm out of LA. And she says, "Hey, come and work for me." And I'm like, "Yeah, I won't be doing that. I still want to be on my own." And she's like, "Well, I've got some tax clients if you want them." And so we're talking like D-list celebrities and benched athletes. But that was my dream. That's what I wanted to do. And so I took the clients, but I just kept feeling this pull as I was coming across all these small businesses that were finding me and had crazy issues. I mean, they were like charging their customer sales tax and then keeping the money and not remitting. And then there were people who hadn't paid income tax ever in the life of their businesses or didn't even know what sales tax was. And so there was lots of knowledge gaps along the way. And I just realized it's really easy for a person to start a business, not so easy for them to maintain it. And compliance is a part of that maintenance. And so I was like, I think my heart's work is to support the people to be able to grow wealth for their families, to build out their own dreams, to chase passion projects, whatever that means for them, but not have to worry about the chaos of tax, which is something that I am all too familiar with. And so I said I could keep doing this fun work, or I could do work that really matters. And so I leaned into the stuff that really mattered.
Talk about raising the capital for the business.
Oh, that's a long conversation. We'll have to be more specific. Well, it's not easy. We can start there. I think that there is a lot under that umbrella of fundraising. I think when we think about running business, there are lots of avenues for funding. So you think about traditional lending that you get from banks, or revenue-based lending, or you think about grants or things like that. But venture capital is basically a form of capital that is purely supplied by a group of investors or investment firms that find your idea interesting and want to help you take it from small idea to massive company. The first part of that is figuring out if whether or not venture capital is for you, because it's not for everyone. It's also not a fail-safe. Assuming that you could press the go button and all of a sudden millions of dollars are raining from the heavens and you're good. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually produce something great by way of the investment. And so it was first about figuring out if venture was for me. And then after that, it was figuring out how am I going to get in front of the people that are just doing. It also was about figuring out what in order to present as a viable investment for those investors, which is another hurdle to climb. So there's lots there we could dig into, I'm sure.
When it comes to taxes and small businesses, how is it going in terms of with the software, getting the word out?
So I believe you're asking more like about our marketing. Is that
right?
Correct? Great. we early days, there's like life cycles, I think, to marketing and sales. If you think about like how to get the word out about your business, early days, it was just very simple. We weren't trying to gobble up the ocean. We were trying to get in front of a very few limited people that actually had the problem we were trying to solve for, and then understand the way that those people think. So doing, I just would trade my time as an accountant. I would ask business owners, I'll give you 30 minutes of my time if you give me 30 minutes of yours. And I would use that time to pepper them with questions about how they were thinking about tax. And then from there, I was able to find a handful of people that specifically experienced the problem we were trying to solve. And then from there, we were trying to get our product in front of them and making sure they understood the problem set and how we were solving for it before we start to like funnel all this money into all these marketing efforts. So early days, it's just trying to find your audience. I think the mistake a lot of businesses make is they try to gobble up the ocean by saying like, I'm going to try to get in front of as many people as I possibly can for moment one. But when you do that, you don't have your messaging down. And so it's very hard for those people to actually grasp what you're selling. If you spend some time on an isolated group of people, you actually can get the messaging right so that they actually will buy. It's not as easy as people may think. You think you're going to just like post up a product and all of a sudden all these people are going to come. It doesn't work that way. You've got to get messaging right. You've got to get timing right. You've got to get platforms right. You have to have budget right. So all of these things feed into actually making those people viable customers. Even if you get them in the door, will they actually buy what you're selling? Do you have that piece of the process correct? So I think we had to spend some time just early days testing out a lot of things and figuring out like what keywords work for us, what landing pages we could build on those keywords, and then ultimately what blog content we could build on those landing pages on those keywords. So it became a funnel where we're attacking actually the paid ad side of things along with like the organic side of things, which is another sort of strategy. There are lots of strategies, but that was one we took that we thought worked really well. We still do it to this day. So because tax is so convoluted and complex, we get a lot of opportunity to basically educate. And we use that education as part of our content strategy. And so along with social media, along with, you name it, we've probably tried it. So, and it's going really well. I think we have a really good funnel, inbound funnel of folks that find us pretty regularly, which is exciting. Now we're starting to shift from the paid ads being the dominant form to now organic being dominant, which is really great, because that means we aren't paying for those people to come to the platform. So more of that is really where we're leaning as we grow.
What is something that you wish you knew before launching the software? Take us behind designing the software. What is something you wish you knew before you engaged?
So I was relatively extremely naive about the tech industry as a whole. I mean, I love tech. I was born around the time Google became a thing. So I got to experience the internet firsthand. I remember when there was no internet, and I remember as it was building. So, or maybe not was no, but was in its infancy. So I got the opportunity to sort of fall in love with tech in that way. And so I was extremely naive about the process that it takes to actually build a tech product and what people will actually pay for. And I think when you're early days, you're really bright-eyed and excited about your idea. But you have to peel back some of that excitement so that you can really just get to the very bare bones of what actually needs to happen. I spent early days way too much money. That's something I wished I would have known, is that it didn't take as much effort, investment efforts, as I thought it did. And so I was spending all this money trying to hire all these developers and all these contractors to sort of help me build out this idea, when really I just needed to hone in on a few people that I knew were interested in the problem I was trying to solve, and then tee up different ideas around how to solve it, and then see if that resonated with people. That work didn't take any money, but I was spending money trying to build a product when I should have been spending time trying to understand a customer. Because the building of the product piece is the easy part. You can find 500 people. You can find anybody to build software. That's not the hard part. The hard part is determining what to build, and if what you build is actually going to be something people want to buy. And I think in our minds, the answer is clear, because in our minds, it's like, I have this problem, or I've experienced this problem, or I'm serving the industry that has this problem. So of course people are going to buy it. Yeah, but you're only one subset. If you think about like a science project, you're only one hypothesis. You're not the masses. And also the way you think about things may not be the way the masses of your true customer would be thinking about the thing. So it's understanding the people that are actually buying the product and how they think about the problem, and then finding ways to offer up very simplified understandings of the solution before you ever build anything. If I could have sold the early versions of the tool, like on a spreadsheet, like here's my spreadsheet, would you buy this? I would have done that before I ever built anything. And not that I needed to have a million customers. I just needed to have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people that understood it. Because if they understood it, then I could extrapolate their understanding across the masses and now funnel money into it and build and grow. So that's something I wish I had known earlier, is that it did not take as much money or effort as I was putting in.
So, Shiloh, what problem exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
Oh, that's really broad. There's a lot of things there. If we talk about personal philanthropy and personal things that I have experienced in my life that I want to stand in just as passion projects, separate of the work that I do, there's lots of areas there. I was a young mother, so I have a heart for single moms, young moms. And so educating young people around safe sex, educating young people around, choice and decision and protection of their bodies. That's a huge problem that I would love to stand in the gap of. If we talk about work related and sort of my career and how I want to continue growing it, there is a lot of legislative gaps between how sort of the federal and state government builds out tax regulation against how the expectations for compliance of that regulation are realized. They aren't the same. And I would love to spend more time in sort of the legislative process and understanding how I could speak for the voices of small businesses that are actually paying the tax legislation is putting into place. And so I think that's a massive problem. That there are tax rules being built out that just don't tie. And then the understanding of those tax rules for the business owner is just like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing and why this even matters. And so I would love to spend more time just on that side of the fence too, as more time frees up for me as we go.
And why did you go into taxes?
Oh, so back to being a young mom, when I was in college, so actually even further back, I had my oldest daughter when I was 17, and a lot of people didn't even think I'd finish high school. And so when I did finish and I was thinking about what I was going to do next, outside of just slaving and working so that I could feed her, I then was trying to figure out how could I make a lot of money and have a lot of stability. I was a single mom, so it wasn't like I had all the support from all these people. I was doing it by myself. And so I needed a career that was relatively stable. And so what I thought that was law. And so I started out, my major was poli-sci, I was a pre-law major. And so I had a boss at the time. I worked in the tax department for a corporation, and she said, you should get into accounting. And why would I do that? She's like, because she was an Indian woman and she said, well, there aren't very many of us as in minority women, and you could make waves. You could climb the corporate ladder easily. You know this stuff. You're smart. You can do this. And I was like, all right, I'll try. I took one accounting class and I loved it. And that was all she wrote. And so tax just it's really just sort of the bridge point between law and accounting. And so tax just made sense for me. So that's what happened. That's how we got there.
That's a great story. Let's talk about our mentors or our top 2 influencers and what lessons did they teach you?
I have like 500 mentors. That's not 2. I have 575. So I think that there are probably 2 or 3 that stand out really strong. And just a sidebar related to mentorship or influencers, I think we have to be careful as to assigning people that job before we even understand what that means. Like, I know a lot of people will say, well, will you be my mentor? Hold on. What do you need mentorship on? And there are lots of ways that I can support you that I don't have to commit hours of my life every week to talking to you about something. So I think that there is that careful balance that we have to sort of understand what our true needs are and how we can call on support for those needs. But I think a few things that the women or men in that mentorship or influencing role has stood in the gap for me for has been just around helping me see my own light. A lot of people would just say to me, a handful of people that I saw as mentors would say to me, like, you can do this. Like, I don't know why you think you can't. Because in my own mind, there was probably roadblocks that were standing in the way of me thinking that this was something I could do. And time after time, a mentor has stood in that gap and said, actually, no, that doesn't apply to you. You can do that. And that was just that extra bit of affirmation that I needed to understand that maybe this isn't outside of my reach. Maybe I'm not reaching too far. Maybe I can lean into that. Another thing that the sort of mentorship space has taught me from people that I've seen in that area is that ultimately what it takes to be at that level is not beyond my reach. I thought that those people up at the top or whatever that means were people that were so grandiose and dynamic and came up on luck and hard work and all these things in arenas that I would never be able to accomplish. But as you start to get to know people and really understand how they get to their success in that mentorship space, you start to understand, like, wait a minute, I'm not that far off. And so that helps me because it became tangible, reachable, touchable, and then I was able to connect the dots a lot simpler. I didn't expect a mentor to actually solve anything for me. I just needed to get beyond the weeds. My life was really chaotic when I was young. And so I call that my weeds. It would shroud my vision. I couldn't see. And so I just needed someone to help me clear the brush a little bit so I could see beyond my own personal chaos, which I think could be true for a lot of young people today. It's like if you could just see beyond your own headache, your own chaos, your own right now, that opens up opportunities for you to sort of navigate through the brush and then get to running down your path. And so that has been how mentors have stood up for me time and time again. It's just helping me see beyond.
I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not, and they've inspired you so much. Who is that person and what are you saying to that person?
Oh, God. I draw inspiration from everyone and everything. It's the way that I think about the world is talking to people. There's always something I can learn, good or bad. And so I try to learn from everyone. So that's a hard question for me to answer. I'm going to name like 5 people. Certainly, I'd probably say my mother. And what I learned from her is the power of education. When I was little, my mom was in college. So all of my young life, I remember my mom going to school and going after a degree, whether she was getting a bachelor's degree, it's a bachelor's, 2 master's degrees, she's a PhD. And so all of this time I'm watching her do all of these programs. I'm young and I'm seeing her study at the desk and I'm watching her, we're going to the library. I have 3 older brothers. We're all going to the library, watching her. We've been to graduation ceremony after graduation ceremony after graduation ceremony. And what that taught me wasn't that education somehow was the key. What it taught me was tenacity was the key. And here was my mother, a single mother. My parents divorced when I was young, raising 4 kids by herself and going to school full time and searching after her dreams. And even if she wasn't doing it altruistically, like it's in dreamland, I definitely remember her fighting constantly for herself. And in that advocation, it taught me to do the same. And she keeps teaching me, even now, as she gets older and her health is fading. It's like I'm constantly reminded that the only limit is me. And if I just keep going, things will work. And if I stand in the gap and I sit in the hard place and I keep trying and I keep going after it, sooner or later, you'll win if you don't quit. For that lesson has been the most valuable. We often quit too early. I, could have talked to myself down out of quitting over and over and over again. Just having that reminder in her is the greatest blessing I could have asked for.
Say her name.
Tina Nanette Johnson Dunn.
Thank you for that. Talk to a younger Shiloh. What advice would you
Ooh,
give to a younger you?
girl, calm down. That's what I would have said. Simmer down. That's what I would have said. In my teens, I was really fighting for myself. So to teenage Shiloh, I say, I know you feel alone and I know you feel scared and I know you feel like nothing is going to work. But I promise you, if you just hold on, put your head down and get to work, everything is going to work out. You are not enough. You are not, none of the things that you believe about yourself right now are true, and you will find that out very soon. Just hang in there and focus. You have nothing to prove to anybody else. You don't have to try and be anybody's choice. You can just focus on yourself, and that is enough. And all things will come together for your good, I assure you. That is the advice I would give her.
Talk about motherhood and managing a business.
Oh, yeah. So I actually have three children. And they are all adults now. Well, by adults, I mean legally, not financially, because they still are coming to me for all of their financial needs. So when I was building CompllyYant, my younger two children were finishing high school. It was exciting for them to see me going after something that I think was like, this is a young person's game, quote unquote. 19-year-olds who drop out of college build tech companies. You know, the fact that you're doing it as an older woman is really cool. So they have drawn so much inspiration from watching me do that. And they made a lot of space for me to just focus on working. And they have a lot of grace for me when I miss things. So I'm thankful for that. If they were much, much younger, I don't know if I would have the same feelings because when they were young, life was very difficult. So I would not, I don't know that I would have known how to balance it all. Them being older helped a lot. They could all drive. Everyone was working, going to school. Like they were living their own lives and trying to figure out how to become young adults. And so it made a lot of space for me to do what I need to do. With that being said, I still miss a lot of things. My younger daughter was a cheerleader. I don't even think I went to maybe one event in total, of her entire cheer career because I was spending it building the company. I was also building the company and running a tax practice at the same time. So technically I was working 20 of the 24 hours in the day. I would take a nap, eat, and get back to work. And that just was my grind for like 9 to 10 months. And it made way for them to have what they have now. So, they all went to college and they didn't have to pay to go to school and they didn't have to take out copious amounts of debt. And so there are things there that they got to benefit from my hard work. But yeah, it was hard. I wasn't always there. And while that still pains me as personal guilt, they're in the background like, hey, mom, that's okay. We didn't need you to be there. You keep doing what you need to do. It's helping us. So thankfully, I have really gracious and phenomenal children. And so they were there to support me in that. So I always say I had it easy from the mothering standpoint in the sense that my kids were older. I have peers that have younger kids where that is just not the case and they're really struggling. So if you are building and you're listening and you have young children, I feel you. Get help as often as you can and try not to hold the guilt in your heart.
Any of the kids working in the business?
No, oh, I take that back. Yes. My oldest daughter, but she does not want to be in the business. She's my personal assistant. So she just helps me run my life. What she wants to be is in film. So she's like, I will do this for you for now. And then I'm going to go chase my film career. So yes, but there's a caveat.
I want you to have a thank fest, attitude of gratitude. And so I want you to thank people and or situations that have really impacted your life. So have at it.
Oh gosh, I do gratitude every morning. So this is right up my alley. Gosh, so I'll start with situations. Being a young mom, I was 17 when I had my oldest child. I'm so thankful for that. It disciplined me. It changed me. It shaped me. It helps me focus. It helps me see the world differently. It was hard and it taught me how to get out of something hard. It was just a masterclass in how to fight for myself. So I'm thankful for that situation. It was the best and the worst times in my life. And I'm really grateful. No regrets at all. I'm thankful for every man that has ever come into my life and left my life. That was massive lesson around just advocating for self again and making sure at the top of the pyramid is always me. Even if I have to reverse that pyramid and stand it on its head and hold people up, it's still always me. And I'm so grateful for those people and those interactions. I am grateful to my very first investors, the first few people that saw my idea and met me and just unwaveringly had faith in my ability to build it. That matters so much to me that they didn't just bet on me because I'm a Black girl. They bet on me because they saw something great and they haven't stopped advocating for me since. I am so grateful for every single employee that has showed up in our company and decided to spend their time and mental energy helping us build this company. It's not lost on me that these group of people are showing up to help me build a dream that's mine. And every day I'm just so, so, so thankful. I'm thankful for my legal team who just constantly keep getting me out of chaos and helping me understand and figure out things. And so a powerful legal team will cross leaps and bounds. So invest the money, it's worth it. I'm really grateful for friends that I'm starting to build. When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of friends to spend a lot of my time actually building, like going to college and working full time. And I couldn't prioritize friendships doing that. I'm trying to be a mother and a student and a worker. Because of that, I didn't have friends. And so now later in my life that I do have more time to commit to those friendships and being a good friend, I'm really grateful for the people that have started to show up in my life and be that for me and allow me to be that for them. And that's really exciting. I am grateful for my children. They are just the coolest. As I said earlier, they've been able to, stand in that gap and they cheer me on every single step of the way. And I'm so honored to have such amazing children. I'm grateful for my new love, my new partner. He is phenomenal, a human being who allows my light to shine, even if that requires for him to dim his. He does it without question. He celebrates me, he sees me, he honors me, he boosts me up. And I'm just, there aren't many like that in today's day and age, specifically men, that would allow their woman to be so dominant. So I'm just so honored and grateful that he loves me. And I'm grateful for your time and to be here with you and to share space. What a great way to start the morning.
Thank you for that. I want to talk about your ideal client. Who is your ideal client?
Yeah, so our businesses are really, they cover the gamut. We're sort of industry agnostic. We support business owners that run businesses in a multitude of industries, except telecom and manufacturing. We don't do anything with those to business owners. But if you're in service, you're providing services, if you are selling products, if you're doing some blend of the two, we are here to support you. If you are a brand new small business and you haven't sold anything yet, we are here to support you. If you already have an accountant, but that accountant is only helping you maybe with your income tax and not the other stuff, we're here to help you. If you are an accountant and you need another revenue stream and some ways to offer some differentiated tax research, we are here to help you. So we kind of cover the gamut, but our sweet spot, who we really work hard for and advocate for, are our true small businesses, those folks that are just trying to figure out how to sell these candles that they made in their kitchen, or people who, are lawn care workers, or, beauticians, or, estheticians, nail salons. I mean, you name it, we've got you. With therapists, anything. So just if you're selling something and you make money, we can help you. So those are our ideal folks.
And what can we do right now to support your business?
You can visit us right now at ComplYant.co. That's ComplyYant.co, and engage with the platform. Try us out. You can try it for free. You just enter some details about your business, and we will return back to you all the tax types that matter to you, and we'll help you calendar them out throughout the year. We'll help you budget for those bills so you know how much to put away so you're not over or under saving. And we just like to help you kind of keep your mind on your money without being overwhelmed. And so engage with us, talk to the chat, let us know if there's some additional features you'd like to see or extra resources that you think would help you understand this process a bit better. We love feedback, we love engagement. And so visit us now.
Thank you for that. What is your zone of genius?
What I will say and what people might say about me are not the same. I'm sure. What I will say, my zone of genius is I am extremely introspective. I spend a lot of time, just as the way my brain works, thinking about my behavior, how I think, and how I operate. And because of that, it has made me very empathetic. It has made me, I think, a stronger leader. And as a CEO, when you're running a company that grows, we have 54 employees now. And so in that space, you very much have to be their advocates. You have to be their mentors. You have to be their teachers. You have to be their support system. You have to almost teach them how to communicate. You stand in a lot of gaps in leadership at this stage. And so because of the work that I do on myself, it allows me to stand in that space really strong. And as a result, people don't join businesses, they join people. So they want to be a part of companies that are led by people that they feel they want to support. They don't really care so much about the product. They care so much about the people running the product. I knew that if I could just work on being a good person, then I could attract the kind of talent that we needed to build the product. That work is work I'm constantly doing. And I think that is part of my genius. I also think that I have a knack for understanding people, which has made it easier to raise money. When you're raising money, you're storytelling and being able to read the physical cues on how people are responding to the story I'm telling, being able to navigate the conversation in order for, the result to become what I need it to be, the messaging to land with them has been a superpower of mine. It's led to my ability to raise so much money. So I think at the root of that, it's just knowing me. The more tapped in I am with myself, the more I can use some of my levers and turn them on when the timing is appropriate in order to get the result I'm trying to get. It sounds more manipulative than I mean it to be, but ultimately, it's really just about understanding myself and not understanding other people. I think people get that backwards and like, well, if I can understand you, then I can help you get there. But the real work is understanding you. And then in understanding you, you know how you can turn on the things that you can do well in order to support the people that need the support. And then also get education or support or learnings where you don't do well. That's another area that I think people miss. It's like no one's perfect, always doing the work. And I think that matters a lot.
And what do you see? What's next for the business over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so we'll keep building out the product. We'll keep building the team. We'll probably keep raising more money. We'll start to make some acquisitions. And, to me, it's a roadmap to IPO. I feel really strongly about becoming a business that can IPO in the next 5 years. So it's just about getting educated around that space and leaning into what it will take for us to actually become a NASDAQ listed company and really sort of start to build the company in that area and getting us from where we were to where we need to be in order to do what everyone calls scaling. So that's a good way to sort of frame that. It's like, how do we get into the scale of getting to IPO is really where we'll be focused.
And going into that VC space, it's not many Black women or Black people, period, in that space. No. Did you have someone make an introduction for you, or how did you enter the space?
No, so the very first introduction into venture ever, I actually had by bravery. So back to one of your other questions, that's probably another one of my geniuses. I'm unbelievably brave. There really just isn't much that I'm not going to do. I just will try. Because to me, no harm, no foul. If I don't try, how will I know? So I'm very brave. And in so doing, when I first had the idea, there was a pitch competition. It wasn't for any money. It was just more for like pitch practice at this small like women's club or something in LA, which is where I'm from. And one of the judges was a venture capitalist. And I pitched CompllyYant and the problem I was trying to solve. And my goal was to try to like test to figure out if I could even do this, if I could talk about the business and if I could present it in such a way that would land with a room full of people. When the competition was over, the judge came up to me and she said, who do you know? Do you know this person? You know this person? You know this person? And I was like, I don't know anyone. I don't know anything about venture. I had never even heard of venture. I was like, I don't know. And she's like, great, I'm going to introduce you. She takes my email and proceeds to like pepper me with all of these introductions. But one introduction she made that mattered the most was to a woman named Mickey Reynolds. She introduced me to her accelerator. It's a pre-accelerator program called Grid 110 out of LA. They don't take equity. They don't give you money. But ultimately what they do is they help you prepare your business for its next step. And they do this specifically for minority businesses in the community. And so they don't center around tech, but they do have a lot of tech-focused folks in the program. So when I applied, I got in. And one of the advisors in the program was also a venture capitalist, a Black man named Austin Clements. And that's how I first got introduced to him. I was literally talking about my business every week for 15 weeks straight. And by the end of the program, he's like, so we'd like to give you some money. And that was sort of the first door in. And once I didn't realize how connected he was. And especially as a Black man in this industry, as you mentioned it, there aren't many in it. So I didn't realize how connected he was. And so after I agreed, he then starts introducing me to all these people. He's like, do you want to meet this person, this person? And that's just been the trickle down, I think, ever since. It's like I've been really fortunate to have people come into my life that have been willing to open their Rolodexes to their communities and let that be sort of a bit of advice for those of you listening who are interested in venture in any way. When people ask you if you need help, say, yes, I need to know who you know, and have them make 1 or 2 or 3 very impactful introductions. Even if they can't give you any money or they're not interested in giving you any money, fine. I don't need your money. I need your resources. I need to know who you know, because who you know will get me to money. And I think if we think about it that way, the road becomes a little less daunting.
I like that. Great advice. What was the aha moment, Shiloh, when you knew your business was going to be successful?
To be fair, I never didn't know it. That's my other genius. I believe in myself to weird proportions. I have a level of confidence that is not common. So there wasn't a point where I didn't think it would be great. But I will say there was a moment when I knew other people would think it was great. And when I figured that out, that was probably, I probably would say when I participated in Grid 110, we used to have to pitch a few times regularly throughout the program. And the very first, it was maybe only the second or third time in my life that I had ever pitched. And the first two times I had pitched the product, it didn't land super well. I mean, I met the woman that I mentioned in my earlier story that was my first time pitching ever. And so I didn't think I did very well, but she had lots of introductions to make and she liked the idea. So I was like, okay, cool. That's one touch point. The second time I pitched, I tanked it. The third time I pitched was in front of this Grid 110 group. So when the pitch was over, we were on Zoom because we were full-blown COVID at this time. In the chat box of the Zoom, people were just like commenting over and over and over about how good the pitch was. And I was like, oh, okay. So other people see me the way I see me. That's cool. So that was like the first, I think one of the first times that I started to resonate that like, not only is this good, but I can do it. I'm the one to do this. It isn't just a good idea. It's the benefit of being a service provider in the sense that like being an accountant, being a CPA is that I already knew the problem and I already knew what I was building was good. I wasn't trying to figure that out because I knew the customer and I knew I was serving them already. And I knew this was a gap. Like businesses didn't have a place to start with understanding their tax. So I was like, oh, that's a no brainer. And every time I would talk about it to anybody, everyone was like, oh, that's genius. Why hasn't someone done that before? So I wasn't looking necessarily for validation on the idea. I think it was more like, am I the person to do the thing? And so when people were starting to be like, oh, yeah, actually, you're phenomenal. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be so good. So that was that.
Mental wellness and entrepreneurship. Talk about that.
Oh, goodness. So that is a huge personal thing for me. I am a massive advocate for mental health. I mentioned it earlier on tapping in with yourself and knowing yourself so well that you can become ultimately the kind of leader that you want to be. That's a lot of that work. It's like showing up and getting healing and understanding and support for the parts of you that are raw and vulnerable and haven't had an opportunity to have that love and that work. I think especially as minorities, especially as women, this industry, as much as people want to say that Black women are owning the hour, and we are, but it's not without work. It's not without trauma. It's not without unpacking. It's not without doing that work every single day to understand, okay, where in my landscape of me do I need to spend attention and time so that I can support myself? What it takes for you to be a CEO of a company of any amount of size or people is another part of your body, mind, and soul. It's just another part. And it takes you to the limits of yourself if you don't have opportunities to focus on yourself, to advocate for yourself, to split your time so you're making sure you're getting enough rest. You're making sure you're exercising, you're well-rounded. It isn't enough to work yourself until your eyes bleed because you become exhausted and the people around you can see it. And then you're not a good leader when you're exhausted. So being a good leader is being able to advocate for yourself so that you can show up and advocate for other people. And then they're attracted to you in that space because they see you doing the work on yourself and they see the success of it. So there's no better example than watching someone do that work. And then when they're coming to you and saying, hey, what work have you been able to do on yourself? And now you're listening to them with clear ears because you see them doing the work. It isn't enough to just say we have to be doing. And I think right now in the way that the world is, we are emotionally so fractured. We're so fractured coming out of COVID, coming out of whatever the system is that we have going on, all the chaos, gun violence. I mean, you name it, we've got the problem. And that is making us emotionally so fractured. And no one's doing the work related to how do we mend and heal and support that fracture so that we can advocate for ourselves and move forward. And so I think if you're going to build something, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to stand in something as a leader, you have a duty, you have an obligation to serve the parts of your soul that still need healing. Because if we don't do that, the toxicity stays. We keep feeding it. We keep creating environments that are toxic. We keep building in environments that are toxic. We center ourselves and surround ourselves with people that are toxic. Until you do that work, you can't spot, the mess.
Talk about self-care. What does that look like for you, Shiloh?
Oh, I'm not a super fan of the self-care phrase. I'm more of a well-rounded. It's probably the phrase I would say. Self-care, I think it gets a bad rap. It says to people that like if you get your nails done, you go get a massage, that's taking care of yourself. And so now you can go and work and do the things you need to do. I don't know if that's 100% true. You can get 500 massages and still feel chaotic. I think that the work is learning how to understand yourself. So back to what I was saying earlier, it's like learning yourself. When you learn yourself so deeply, you learn what you need to turn on and off at any given moment in order to support your soul. That's the work that needs to be done in the quote unquote self-care movement is how can I read myself? How can I learn my emotions? How can I sort of hear, feel, and understand myself to know that something's not right with me? And I need to give myself time to figure that out. Whether it's alone time, whether it's quiet time, whether it's finding new practices and habits around your cell phone usage, whether it's stretching, whether it's meditating, whether it's going for walks, whether it's building exercise into your program, whether it's seeing a doctor, right? Like seeing a doctor is self-care, like understanding where how your health needs work, or whether it's rethinking your diet. And I don't mean like losing weight. I just mean, how do you think about how food serves you? Whether it's, so the list can go on and on. And I don't think it has anything to do with taking the day off to get your nails done. I think it has to do with how do I read myself to know what I need in order to serve my soul? When am I my best self? And then how do I know when I'm not my best self? And that takes the work of getting to your best self, getting to the part of you that you love and joy and find joy in, and then trying to regurgitate that moment as often as you can so that you can be at a really calm level of like sort of medium. And then in that space, you can make clear decisions. You can think, you can, act, you can move forward, focus. You're not making decisions out of your emotions at that place. You're making decisions out of thoughtfulness. And so I think that's the self-care work we should be focusing on. It's like, how do I read myself? How do I tune so deeply into me that I know when the channel needs to be changed?
If you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
What's the one question I would have asked myself? Oh, goodness. I do a lot of these. I think the question I would have asked myself is, what is something that you felt you needed in order to get to where you are? And I would answer that by saying, what I needed in order to get to where I am is I needed freedom. And I needed freedom of thought. So freedom to be able to ideate and dream about things that make no sense to most people. And I needed that freedom. And I had it. So I needed that freedom in order, because a lot of times people will shoot down your dreams because they think it's outside of your realm. If you talk to somebody who's never worked a day in tech and then all of a sudden that person's like, I'm going to build a tech company, everybody in their life is like, what are you doing? Don't do that. But in my life, people were like, do it, make it happen. You got it. So that freedom allowed me space to just go. I needed mental freedom to free myself from the shame and the bondage I was battling in my mind. As being a young mom, I dealt with a lot. And so I started to do that work to unpack that. And so that mental freedom allowed me to make space so that I could dream big. I also needed emotional freedom. And that emotional freedom, actually, back to the work of the mental health work that I needed to do, was weighing on my emotions, like depression and anxiety. I was battling a lot when I was younger, just being a young mom and not knowing what I was doing. And so once I was starting to get clear and free of that, it allowed me to think freely and dream big. And so the goal really in all of this is, if you're chasing something entrepreneurially, you got to chase it big. Tiptoeing isn't going to get you there. Tiptoeing is going to have you rolling back down the hill. You've got to run up the hill, and the hill's got to be high. And because of that, you got to have the freedom in your mind's eye to be able to ideate around that. And so what I needed and what I had was freedom.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called the Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
Let's do it.
Your ideal car?
An Aston Martin.
Your first job?
I worked in a furniture store that sold office furniture.
Your favorite color?
Green.
Your favorite holiday?
I like the 4th of July. Barbecues, good music, family, the best.
The last movie you saw?
On the plane, Wakanda Forever.
You relax doing what?
Reading.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Oh, both. I'm going to answer them both. My favorite singer, to my core, I just love Beyonce. She's so good. The voice is like unmatched. My favorite rapper right now is Kendrick Lamar.
Your favorite dance song?
Oh, I love dancing. Anything with the up-tempo beat, I love it. Yeah.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Some vegetable. Some vegetable. I need vegetables.
Your favorite comfort food?
Mac and cheese. Just reminds me of home.
Work out or hit the couch?
Work out. Just clears my brain.
Shiloh Johnson, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur
Absolutely.
Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you. And feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Awesome. So you can find me everywhere on every platform at Shiloh A. Johnson, SHILOH, middle initial A, Johnson. I am on every platform as the same handle. You can find CompllyYant also everywhere at CompllyYant app, ComplYantapp on every platform. You can also visit our site. I mentioned it earlier, ComplYant.co. We're always there to help. And yeah, looking forward to hearing and connecting with all of you.
Thank you, Shiloh. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.